Hello, good morning, dear friends. Welcome to the Spirit Society of Virginia and happy Easter, this beautiful Sunday. We welcome everyone who is watching us online as well. So, in order for us to get started, we're going to start with a message and remembering that the message is important for us so that we can start getting into the theme of today, listening to the counsels of the good spirits and raising our vibrations. So we know we all have the challenges of life, the to-do things, the plans later in the day, but now it's time to really focus on the lesson here. So with that, we invite our dear John to join us. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Daisy. And this is this reading. Normally we do something out of Living Spring collection, but today, don't worry, it's from Emmanuel also. But it's the beginning of the book, Sex and Destiny. And it's instead of an introduction in this book, he chooses to do a prayer, and it's entitled Prayer Before Starting this book. And then he writes, Father of infinite goodness, this is a book in which you have allowed our dear Andre Louise to use his thrilling account to inform us about some of the concepts of higher spirituality with regard to sex and destiny. It is a verbal photograph of our harsh reality, which you have filled with eternal hope. By offering it to our incarnate friends in the world, we want to remember Jesus, the messenger of your unlimited mercy, on that sunny day in Jerusalem. In the square, crowded with accusers, some scribes and Pharisees brought him a suffering woman and said that she had been caught sinning. And he would do. Master, this woman was caught in adultery. The law says she is to be stoned. But what do you say? The master contemplated these zealous followers of Moses at length, and because it would be useless to explain anything to their prejudice-filled minds, he said to them, and to all the moralists of the centuries to come, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. In present times, Jerusalem represents the whole world. In the enormous square of human conventions and in patent disregard for human dignity, materialism tries hard to do away with moral values, whilst venerable religions fight against nature in a vain attempt to block life, as if they wanted to fool themselves. Due to the tremendous conflict between the gigantic forces that fight for the moral control of Earth, you have sent us the Spiritist doctrine in the name of Christ's gospel to reassure souls and tell them that love is the essence of the universe, that all people were born from the divine breath in order to love one another, that sex is a sublime legacy and the home a sanctifying shelter, clarifying, however, that love and sex create natural responsibilities in each person's conscience, and that no one hurts another person in the treasures of love without paying a high price for it. This book is also meant to affirm that if you cannot keep the guilty from suffering the consequences of their wrongs, neither do you allow the defeated to be left without assistance, provided they accept your redemptive light on their path. This book also shows that with your blessing, the moral delinquents of yesterday, but redeemed today, have become your messengers of redemption for those who fell into the traps of darkness in the past. Therefore, bless this true and hope-filled account, and as we entrust it to our brothers and sisters in the world, may we remind them that physical existence, whether in childhood or youth, in adulthood or old age, is an ineffable gift, which we must always honor, and that even if imprisoned within a crawling or shapeless, deformed or infirm body, we must repeat before your immeasurable wisdom, Thank you, dear God.
So, friends, now we're gonna prepare for our initial prayer. Let us close our eyes and let us breathe in and out, acknowledging the blessed physical body that we were given in this reincarnation. What a blessed opportunity. Dear loving Father, you know what it is in the depths of our hearts. You know, Father, exactly what we need at this moment. And that's why right now we raise our thoughts to you, not worrying about our individual petitions because you already know each and every one of them. But thinking about our brothers and sisters in humanity, thinking about those who are suffering much more than we are, because we, Father, are blessed to have this knowledge. This book is in our hands. Dear loving Father, we ask that in this beautiful Sunday morning, where we truly celebrate the coming of the Christ to earth, our guide and model who came to show us the pathway, and out of love towards each and every one of us, he showed to us true humility, true forgiveness, and true surrender to your designs. In this beautiful Sunday morning where we celebrate Easter, let us remember the dear Master, not on the cross, but walking away from the tomb, showing to us that life goes on, that we are not the physical body, that our spirits live and remain. Let this be the focus of our each and every day, remembering that we're not tied to the limitations of the physical body, the material things of life, the earthly problems. We are immortal spirits. Dear Master Jesus, that this morning can be of true renewal to our souls, that we can learn the responsibility of the creative forces that you have given to each and every one of us, so that we can realign ourselves. Dear Master Jesus, we ask that all those in our planet who are going through moments of despair, those who are living zones of violence, conflict, we pray for those who are still tied to all sorts of addictions, sex addiction, drug addictions, slander, revenge. We ask for those who are begging on the streets, visualizing those at the McPherson Square Park in Washington, D.C., and all the streets around the world. We pray for those in nursing homes, hospitals, and prisons, visualizing your light enveloping the whole planet Earth. We feel certain that you take care of each and every one of us today and always. And we ask your permission to open this study session of this morning, and so be it. Dear friends, we're now going to invite our dear Carol to join us to lead in our study this morning.
So, friends, happy Easter once again. May the Master rise in the temples of our hearts. May the Master of all creative forces, as he was and still is the instrument of God our Father on earth, be an inspiration for our talk today. And today we have a big topic to talk about: sex and responsibility. Do we normally put these two words together? Good question, right? The high spirits certainly do. And they have much to tell us. Today we are going to rely upon, thank you, Daisy. Today we are going to rely upon Andrea Lewis and Emmanuel as our educators from the beyond. In terms of Andrea Lewis, we are going to refer to two case studies presented to us in the book Sex and Destiny, whose prayer our dear John read to us earlier today. And also, we are going to utilize Emmanuel's wisdom presented to us in a book, not yet in English, entitled Life and Sex. Vida e Sexo, for those of us who read Portuguese. For those of us who don't read Portuguese, don't worry. Our free translation is here to help us all nourish our souls. So, because on earth currently we don't yet, and I say yet, highlighted and underlined, we don't yet join the words sex and responsibility every day. We brought the pillars that these two spirits put together for us to inspire our conversation. So let us begin, dear friends. Let us begin with the basis from which we are going to build our building of knowledge here. What is the basis? The basis is understanding the Spiritist view on sex. The Spiritist view on sex is quite unique. Why? Because we look at sex, this exchange that we are familiar with, from an eternal point of view, not something that we talk about every day. But thanks to Spiritism, this conversation is made possible for us today. So, based upon Emmanuel's book, Vida e Sexo, Life and Sex, we learn the following. We learn that sex is in fact a holy attribute that is not only respectful, but sacred as well. Why does Emmanuel utilize the words holy and sacred when referring to sex? Because, friends, with Spiritism and through Spiritism, we learn that sex comes from God. Carol, that's a shocker. But it is reality. Every faculty that we are blessed with, including our creative faculty, is given to us by God. So if we experience any sort of conflict regarding this faculty that was given to us, we have the big guy out there to talk to because this is his loving creation. This is why we can say, borrowing the words of our dear Emmanuel, that sex is both holy, respectful, and sacred because it is a manifestation of God's love for us. This, in and of itself, is unique to the Spiritist perspective because Spiritism puts God into the equation. Often we separate our expressions of our creative energy from God. But Spiritism comes and says, wait, guys, let us bring God back into the equation because we have this creative force thanks to God. What else does Emmanuel bring to us? Emmanuel teaches us the purposes for which God has granted us this beautiful, sacred, holy, and respectable force. Emmanuel explains to us that we owe to this creative force, to sex, what he calls the institute of reincarnation, sorry, the temple of the home, the blessings of family, the revitalizing joys of affection, and the inestimable treasure of spiritual stimuli. So we learn from Emmanuel something quite unique, that this creative force is meant to bring us joy because it is present every time we express affection, every time we express creativity. So, for example, a painter painting is using this creative force. A person cooking a delicious meal is utilizing this very creative force. A person praying is utilizing this very creative force. A group going to the McPherson Square to serve our brothers and sisters in greater need is utilizing this creative force. Right now, as we put our hearts and minds together for the purpose of nourishing our souls, we are utilizing this creative force. So, this creative force is a part of our lives every day. Sex, the physical interaction, is just one of the many manifestations of this very same force. And the very force that Master Jesus and other Christ-like spirits have utilized to form the planet also derive from this very same creative force. So, where are we going with this? It is our ultimate destiny, speaking of sex and destiny, to be able to sublimate this force inside of us to the point where we utilize it to serve humanity. There will be a point where we will be co creators at a major level, like Master Jesus. And then we will be architects of the universe in the name of God and service to God. And this is one of the ultimate applications of this creative force. So there are many beautiful manifestations of it. But in order for us to get there, no matter how long it takes, it is important to educate this force. And with education comes responsibility. But how do we understand responsibility in terms of sex? Thankfully, we have Emmanuel. Thank God we have Emmanuel as a great educator from the beyond. In the book Life and Sex, Emmanuel helps us to understand how responsibility comes into the equation. Emmanuel explains the sex calls for responsibility and discernment, however and whenever it expresses itself. So that means there isn't a day where we can let go of the responsibility. The responsibility end of it is not going to go on vacation because we are here to learn to be responsible for all of our faculties. And sex is one of our divine faculties, and thus it does not escape the realm of our responsibility. And we know friends that say, but Carol, come on. We're just doing our own thing behind closed doors. Come on, Carol, give us a break. But the thing is, friends, we are never alone. And every action has its own reaction, a law of the universe. And we are going to understand how come we are never alone, even when it comes to sex, as we study the two case studies taken from the book Sex and Destiny in a moment. For now, let us continue understanding, with the help of our dear Emmanuel, why is it that sex calls for responsibility. Emmanuel tells us very clearly and directly, thank God, that we need to be aware that our sexual forces are also subordinated, connected, linked to the law of cause and effect. That means that however we direct this force, we will respond to how we are utilizing it. Whatever we give to others will come back to us. Why? Is God punishing us? No, God is being a sublime educator because God is teaching us to grow by allowing for us to respond for our own choices. That's how God is educating us. Is God educating us because God is upset with us in whatever way? No, God is educating us out of love. So we learn to make more and more loving choices ourselves. And so Emmanuel reinforces to us that everything, and we highlight the word everything, no exception, everything we give to others within the affective world, the world of our emotions, feelings, sentiments, all others will also give to us, including when it comes to sexual relationships. So now the question for us becomes, how is sex a part of this equation? What equation are we referring to? The law of action and reaction. Emmanuel just taught us that sex responds, is subordinated to the law of action and reaction. But we would like to know how. So let us turn back to Emmanuel for this purpose. Emmanuel tells us that we cannot underestimate the importance of the creative force, which in essence pours from divine creation to sustain all beings. Because God is constantly creating, it is God's creative force that sustains the creation, including ourselves. This is why this is such an important force. And Emmanuel continues by saying that it is our inner duty to learn to manage how we utilize this force. And this is left to our free will. In the book Life and Sex, Emmanuel quotes the Spirit's book by Kardec. And Emmanuel explains to us that the sense of duty comes from when the joy, happiness, serenity of another person is threatened by our own actions. So our duty is to utilize our free will in such a way so that our choices don't pose any threats to the tranquility of others. This is very unique to Spiritism because without Spiritism, if we take this perspective out of our equation, we may think that our duty is to be a good provider for our family, that our duty is to have a retirement for 401k, that our duty is to go to school, that our duty is to get married and have children and grandchildren and check all the adulthood boxes, right? If we could put it in the form of a checklist. Check, check, check. I'm an adult officially. I'm doing what I am supposed to do. I'm all good. Yes, of course, having a family is crucial, as Emmanuel told us. Of course, relationships are essential for our growth, but this is more, our sense of duty goes beyond the checklist mentality. Our sense of duty is within, is in our inner compass. So, what are we giving of ourselves as we fulfill those checklist items there? Because what society values is important, but what God values is what we reincarnated to do. And what God values is love and respect for others. So, as we are mothers, as we are fathers, as we are uncles, as we are grandfathers, right, John? Are we giving of our hearts to others? That is the question. Because when we discarnate, we will not be asked if we paid our bills faithfully, or how many degrees we have, or how many cars we had in our garage, or even how many years we were married for. But we will be asked whether we were able to love the people with whom God granted us the permission to re-encounter, because no one with whom we have a relationship of any sort comes to us by accident. And the plan of God is always the plan to love. So the ultimate question here is, are we utilizing our creative faculty to actually love, or are we going through the motions? Because if we are going through the motions, we are doing what Emmanuel is presenting to us. Emmanuel is saying that often our consciousness is not working at its full potential. It is dormant by the checklist mentality. Emmanuel says it is powerless before the sophisms, disturbances of passion, of what is in vogue in our current society. So now that we learned a little bit about the fact that sex is subordinated to the law of action and reaction. The fact that sex is a divine faculty. The fact that everyone with whom we have a relationship is not with us by chance. We are now going to examine two real life cases reported to us from the beyond by Andrea Lewis in the book X and Destiny. We are very thankful to Andrea Lewis because he helps us to see life in two worlds. And this is Andrea Lewis, so all gratitude to him. And we are going to focus our attention today on Marina and Claudio's case. Both of these cases are reported in the book Sex and Destiny. We highly recommend that we dive into the reading because we will certainly not do justice to Andrea Lewis's work, but thankfully we all have access to it. So allow us to speak a little bit about Marina. Marina is this young lady that we see on the screen. Do we see her thoughts there? Do you see the little thought bubble there? Believe it or not, these are her innermost thought patterns. She's sitting on the lounge chair, chilling, as we say. I'm just chilling. She's chilling herself, yes, just chilling, yes, but there's no such thing as just chilling. Why? Because if we look at life from both worlds, we come to realize, as we said last week, that mental matter matters. Why? Because her thoughts are being projected like a 7D screen. She has her own inner Netflix there. And she doesn't know that there's an audience watching, but there is. So she's thinking of Nemésio and Gilberto. Why? Because she's having an affair with both father and son. Nemésio and Gilberto are father and son. Nemésio is Marina's boss, married to Beatriz. And Marina is having an affair with Nemésio. At the same time, Marina is in love with Gilberto, the son. So she's thinking of both right now and trying to see how she's going to balance, quote unquote, balance, if we could say it that way. A little bit ironic to say that, but that's what she's thinking. She's thinking about how she's going to, quote unquote, balance both relationships. What she does not realize is that her thoughts are being observed by André Luiz and Pedro Neves. So her innermost secret, which she believes that she can keep to herself, are completely out in the open. So friends, there's no hiding it. There's no, I'm just thinking. If, for example, we are watching pornography and we are physically alone, first of all, there's no alone because immediately spirits of a lower order will connect to us. Oh, Carol, how do you know that these will be spirits of lower order? Because do we think that the mentors from on high want to watch pornography? Very likely not, because they have already learned to sublimate their own creative forces. But if we choose to guide our creative forces in this manner, by, for example, watching pornography, immediately we are going to connect with spirits of very low order. And Andre Lewis in this book shows us that when Marina is in a room having an affair with Nemesio, dozens, not one, we repeat, dozens. Shall we say it again? Just to make sure, not one, dozens, dozens of discarnated spirits are there, vampirizing them. What does it mean to vampirize, Carol? It means it involves, this is a process through which discarnate spirits of low order suck our vitality and our energy. This is why often individuals who watch pornography are very tired physically, deprived of vitality, because they are not alone. They have a gang in the spiritual realm using them to suck their energy. Andre Lewis registered that in the book Sex and Destiny. And he even went, he being Andre Lewis, he even went as far as describing, and if you guys would like, you can read this directly in the book. He went as far as describing that as they were romantically involved in intercourse, Nemesio and Marina, spirits of a low order were literally glued to their bodies to suck their energy. This is why this process is called vampirism in Spiritism, because the spirits of a lower order are vampirizing, acting like vampires, literally sucking energy and vitality. This is why the mentors of the Spiritist Society of Virginia recommend that whenever we engage in sexual intercourse, we pray beforehand. And sometimes friends say, but Carol, if we pray, we won't be able to do anything. Come on, Carol, have mercy. But the mentors say that because we live in two worlds, we have to be careful who we open the doors of our bedroom to. Because once they are in, they are in. In our mediumistic meetings, right here at the Spiritus Society of Virginia, often spirits who are sex addicts in the beyond come through, and they say that they don't want to lose, quote unquote, lose their partners. And their partners are us, the incarnate. So the reality is we are going to be accompanied by discarnate individuals no matter what. So what company would we like to have? If we would like to have good company, including during a sexual relationship, then we have to invite God into the equation. Do we have to pray out loud? Not necessarily. We can pray in our minds because our minds are open books, like Marina's right now. She thinks she's hiding her affairs from everyone, truly. But is she? No. This is why in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, it says adultery by thought. Because she is committing adultery not only physically, but also by thought. And spirits, both the higher order spirits and lower order ones, can see it. The higher order spirits, like Andre Lewis, are praying for her and are hoping that they can assist her. But how about the spirits of lower order? They're like, go, go, yes, have fun, yes, enjoy life. Why? Because they have a desire to enjoy life more than others. They're like, why follow vows of loyalty when you can have more fun? And this is why we, as humanity, commit moral indiscretion. Because we have quote unquote cheerleaders from the beyond saying, yeah, just have some fun, just enjoy yourself. Nobody will know. Nobody will know is actually not the reality. Because not only is our consciousness recording our actions, but also spirit mentors are able to see what we are doing, and spirits of a lower order are able to see what we are doing as well. In the case of Marina, she wasn't able to sustain the affairs for very long because the father, Nemésio, found out about her and Gilberto, as you can see in the scene there. What happened to Marina next? She literally went to a psychiatric institution. She was committed to a psychiatric institution. Why? Because her sense of guilt and shame connected her to spirits of lower order who reinforced her guilt and shame to the point that she lost the ability to reason. So this is why, dear friends, having responsibility for our creative forces is so important. Because when we don't take this responsibility, our own conscience will scream at us. Our own conscience, nobody else will. Our conscience will scream at us to a point where we may reach madness. Marina's escape from her inner duties led her to madness. How about Claudio? Let us introduce Claudio to everyone. Claudio is our second case study subject, brought to us by the dear spirit doctor Andre Lewis. Claudio is actually Marina's father, biological father. Marina had an adopted sister named Marita. Claudio, accompanied by his dear friend, an obsessor named Moreira, comes into Marita's room thinking, again, the power of thoughts, thinking that Marita, Marina's sister, is becoming a beautiful woman, that she's in fact highly attractive, that it is time for her to quote unquote have some fun in life. And because she is adopted, he is willing to quote unquote train her. That these are his words. Oh, I remember, and we invite everyone to read the account because it's
I remember the spelled it because she's adopted.
mind-blowing account. It's a mind-blowing account. He is quote unquote ready to train her. His desire for morbid pleasures. Why do we call it morbid? Because it's lethal to him spiritually to feel this way. So it's morbid in a sense that it goes against God's laws. That's why we call it morbid. But Claudio, in his mind, kept justifying himself. Oh, it's time. I have given my life for her. Now it's time for us to truly, quote unquote, love ourselves. And the Scarlet companion, Moreira, kept saying, yes, women are just like shoes. If one doesn't fit, you just go for another. And Moreira said, she is the perfect shoe for you. She will be a quote unquote fit in. From an incarnate point of view, our dear Claudio thought that he was alone, that these were his thoughts. But no, dear friends, thanks to the bifocal lenses of André Luiz, we know that these were not his thoughts alone. That Moreira was pushing him and pushing him. Is he a victim? No, because Claudio, is the one who decided to tune in to Moreira's mental current. If we can see in the picture, dear friends, André Luiz was also there with his friend Pedro Neves. André Luiz kept sending Claudio thoughts of respect, thoughts of compassion toward his own daughter, thoughts of understanding towards his own daughter. Whose advice, though, did Claudio hear? Moreira's. Why? Because that's the mental current or frequency that Claudio tuned into. So our mind is like the internet. We choose the Wi-Fi that we connect to. Claudio could have chosen to connect to the Wi-Fi of André Luiz and other mentor spirits who were there. But Claudio didn't even realize that they were there. Why? Because he decided to sign in into the obsessor's Wi-Fi. The obsessors, friends, are our friends. Why? Because they tune into us, because we call them. So we are not victims either. They are just, quote unquote, joining our party. So, therapeutic question for us. Who is renting a room in our minds right now? Which mental Wi-Fi are we connecting to? Therapeutic question for us. Because if we connect to the destructive Wi-Fi, the consequences may be lethal. Claudio went through with his plan, sadly, and later he found out that Marita was actually his biological daughter, so he committed incest. As a result of the incest, Marita tried to commit suicide because she couldn't handle knowing that her father pursued her as a woman, not as a daughter. And here's how Emmanuel breaks this down to us in the book Life and Sex. Emmanuel says, and these are very strong words, but thankfully we are not the ones saying them. It's Emmanuel. Okay, friends? So Emmanuel says, so that we do not become emotionally, psychically, were the words of Emmanuel, mutilated. It is imperative that we do not mutilate others. So when we, quote unquote, have fun with other people's feelings and other people's creative forces, we automatically form a connection of responsibility with them, a fluidic connection of responsibility with them. And so if we abuse them emotionally, psychically, sexually, by just having fun, then we are mutilating them. Words of Emmanuel. And in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, we have a confirmation of that. Camilo Castelo Branco, while visiting the colonies of Mother Mary that works with the rehabilitation of suicide spirits, shows us that there is a psychiatric institution in Mother Mary's colonies for those who did not take responsibility for their creative forces. And spiritually speaking, the perispirit is the subtle body that we have, is mutilated. And they literally lost their ability to reason. That's why they are in a psychiatric institution in the spiritual realm. And Emmanuel goes further. Emmanuel confirms to us that we are not victims because he says to us, when a person like Claudio flees the just commitment, harming the emotional balance of others, mutilating them, the resulting imbalance reverberates in the aggressor. So who are we hurting first and foremost? Ourselves. Because our consciousness and our perispirit are going to register our course of action. And we are going to be forming perispiritual lesions. This is why Emmanuel tells us that we are mutilating ourselves when we play with the affective world of others. And when we do this, dear friends, sadly, when we choose not to take responsibility for how we direct our sexual forces, we often aggravate our existing death. Claudio, says André Lewis, had reincarnated to redeem himself before his two daughters. And through his free will and desire to enjoy life more than others, he went the opposite direction, sadly. So Marita discarnated as a result of indirect suicide, and Claudio also suffered an accident and lost his physical life. And what happens to us as we choose to go against God's laws or to go in favor of God's laws? We all have a divine accountability system within us. This divine accountability system is called the voice of our consciousness. It is with us now. It will be with us tomorrow. It will be with us when we discarnate and in our many lifetimes to come. So as we undergo the divine accountability that our own consciousness is preparing for us, day after day, registering our thoughts, words, feelings, and actions, when it comes to sex and responsibility, Emmanuel brings us three important reminders that we summarized for us in this slide. Emmanuel says, abortion goes against the divine laws. How do we know? Because the divine laws are always life-giving. never life suppressing. And Emmanuel says it is even more of a crime before God when we practice abortion under the pretext of safeguarding our own comfort. Like, oh, we are not ready, not a good time. We'll have a family later, have to work on other priorities. Emmanuel in the book Life and Sex, chapter 17, tells us that this is a problem. For whom? For God? No, because God loves us unconditionally. For Master Jesus? No, because he also loves us unconditionally. For whom is this a problem? Our own conscience. Emmanuel explains to us that often before reincarnating, we write up a reincarnatory plan. And one of the items is, oh, we will take this spirit as our daughter or as our son because we recognize that we need to learn to love them so much. And we thank you, God, for the opportunity. And we literally sign on it. But then as we reincarnate and it's time to take responsibility for the plan that we co-constructed, we say, oh no, excuse me, not now. This is how Emmanuel explains the dynamic of abortion according to the Spiritist perspective. What happens if we did commit an abortion because we didn't know? Thankfully, there's always a solution. What is the solution? Thankfully, as well, the solution doesn't come from any of us, but it comes from Master Jesus. Master Jesus said to us, love covers a multitude of sins. So just like Mary of Magdala, we can learn to love other mothers and fathers' children. And as we love others, we are therefore coming to peace with our own conscience because love is the pathway. How do we know? Because of our guided model who told us so. And Emmanuel brings another point that is so important for us. He says, the challenging wife, because he explains that the majority of unions on earth are expiatory, are difficult ones. So how does he define the challenging wife, the quote-unquote challenging wife? Emmanuel tells us that the challenging life is the result of our own disloyalty in previous lives. She is a victim of our own inconsequence. Chapter 9 of the book Sex and Life. So our partners, whomever they may be, are a reflection of our own actions from previous lives. And we often ask for the opportunity to be with them, to redeem our own conscience, and to re-educate them. Is this easy? No. Requires an incredible amount of patience, renunciation, resignation. And how about the difficult husband? Emmanuel tells us the difficult husband was dilapidated. We put this in quotes because these are actual Emmanuel's words. The difficult husband was dilapidated by her, the wife. Now the wife is responsible for re-educating him. In a previous life, the wife was, oh, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. No, the whatever attitude. We are allowed to sow, but then later we must reap. So if we sow the whatever attitude previously, now we are reaping the consequence. Is the consequence a punishment? No. It's an opportunity for us to redeem ourselves before who? Or before what? Before our own conscience. Because God, friends, will never point fingers at us, but we will. The finger will come from this direction. But because everything in the universe is love and hope, Emmanuel also gives us hope in the book Sex and Life. Emmanuel tells us, affirms to us, that the fallen of yesterday and today will likely be the virtuous of tomorrow. And in the book Sex and Life, not Sex and Life, excuse us, in the book Sex and Destiny, we have a living example of this. Brother Felix, the tall, somewhat blonde, I believe, gentleman wearing a blue gown. Can you guys see? He, too, in the 1800s, was the one who caused emotional dilapidation on many families because he had a series of affairs, and through them he broke apart the two families that are the center of the book Sex and Death. So he's the one who triggered all the difficulties that the book Sex and Destiny shows us. But now where is he? He's actually the director of the Institute Sibling Souls in Nosolar. So he has become the guardian angel of all these individuals because everyone, with no exception, is a child of God. And everyone is destined to allow their own light to shine. But how far it takes, or how long rather, it takes for us to get there is up to us. We dictate the rhythm, the pace of our evolution. Brother Felix understood his mistakes. He took ownership of his mistakes. He wasn't like, oh, I did this, but how many times do we ourselves say, you know, I did this, but you don't know that. How many times do we say that? I had my reasons, and oftentimes we have a list of 10 reasons, right? Or more to justify ourselves. Brother Felix was humble. He didn't seek to justify himself. He owned his own mistakes. He took responsibility. He called himself a sexual delinquent. And it's because he didn't try to escape from the truth that he evolves ever so quickly. Our issue, friends, is that we choose to live in a parallel universe that contains only the truth that we think is convenient for us and not God's truth. Brother Felix took responsibility for his sexual misdemeanors, so to speak. And because he took responsibility, he went from living in his own parallel universe of convenient truths to living under God's truths. And the light of God's truths gave him so much strength that now he's the mentor spirit who is not only directing an institute of rehabilitation for sexual criminals like ourselves, but he is also the mentor spirit guiding all the spirits involved in this drama, real life drama. So, is there hope for us? Always hope for us. Is the plan divine? Absolutely. Do we have, oops, sorry, do we have someone to inspire us? Of course we do. And the model for us always is Master Jesus. How then do we unite sex and responsibility? If we could summarize everything Emmanuel and Andre Lewis have brought to us, we are being invited today and always, because these are eternal, immortal teachings, to follow the golden rule in terms of how we direct our sexual and creative energies. We are being invited to do unto others what we wish to receive. Having our guide and model as a north and a compass, inspiring everything in our lives, including our most intimate relationships. So we are being invited to see our partners as spirits, as children of God. And we are being invited to think about what is it that we can offer to them eternally speaking. How can we support them in their eternal growth? How can we love them more eternally speaking? And in doing this, we will most certainly learn how to use our sexual forces with much responsibility, knowing that we are all destined to be virtuous and victorious as children of God. So now, with our Master in our minds and hearts, visualizing him rising in the temples of our souls, we are now going to invite everyone for our virtual passes. Let us remember, friends, that the passes are a sacred moment whereby the mentor spirits operate upon us. Tony, do you mind please going inside and calling Daisy for us? Thank you. Oh, thank you. So let us already, dear friends, visualize the mentor spirits here, the doctors, the nurses, the therapists. Let us visualize them offering each and every one of us a luminous bouquet of lavender flowers, bringing light, bringing hope, bringing joy of living to all of our hearts. Let us rest assured that they are here ready to give us all that we need and more.
Welcome to the Virtual Passes Room. Emmanuel, the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier, once stated that thought is life. Thus, we can create the healing mental state right here and now. In preparation for the virtual passes, we would kindly recommend the following. Be certain that you have a real need to receive passes. Do not use the room simply out of curiosity. Casual visits to the room will negate its future benefits when needed. When using the room, have gratitude and show respect as you would when visiting a physical spiritist center. During the passes, silently evoke God's protection as well as Jesus. Also pray to your guardian angel. Concentrate on positive thoughts, thereby avoiding negative ones. Breathe deeply, slowly, calmly, and confidently. Always be ready to pray. Let us begin this passes session by praying as our guide and model, Jesus Christ, has taught us with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now, let us feel that small points of suffering, bitterness, sadness, anger, deception, disappear from your mind to not return. Like aged leaves that are shed from trees, let go of those feelings that no longer serve you. And gently, but most assuredly, discard them. Let the wind of life carry them so far away that they are unable to return and recreate their negative link. Little by little, your emotional tree sheds its negative feelings, becoming clean and ready for its renovation. Without the weight of those dead leaves, you feel lighter and are able to feel the gentle water of life now abundantly falling onto your physical body, spiritual body, and soul. This water cleans, disinfects, purifies, deconstructs, and tones all the cells of your body. Nothing can escape its renewing action. At the same time it is cleaning and moisturizing your body, this crystalline liquid satiates your spirit, eliminating affliction, anxiety, and unrest. Now within your heart resides a sense of calmness, cleanness, and well-being. Then the light of God emerges to warm and snuggle you, while caring rays penetrate your whole body and tenderly embrace you like a maternal hug, which brings comfort and safety to your heart. At this moment, great love warms your heart and removes the coldness resulting from any affliction. Now, your mind contains only feelings of joy and confidence. You are at peace and enveloped by a protective warmth. The heart of life offers you perfumed flowers. Then, with a grateful and happy soul, you gather their colorful petals that penetrate your whole being, restoring feelings and emotions of happiness, hope, faith, courage, and determination, helping you to regain the willingness to live. In addition to the perfume and color, nature also shares with you the best it has to offer, an infinite capacity for restoring its sublime beauty, even when struck by evil that appears to enact its end. Divine hands full of light gently overflow and spill over you like a golden waterfall of unspeakable and unknown essence. Little by little, your soul is impregnated with sweet happiness, allowing an inner renewal of the most noble and elevated purposes, that of progress and accomplishment. Showered by this sublime power, you deeply surrender to the donor of light, absorbing energy that now gives your life a new and blessed impulse. You called me, and here I am. What do you want from me today? What do you need? Ask, my son. Ask, my daughter. I am here to help. Now, ask your special request to Jesus, enumerating the problems and difficulties that afflict you. I listen to your request with love and attention. Now I count on your faith and trust in me to solve your problems. Go in peace. I am watching over you, and I will not lose sight of you. Believe in God and also believe in me. I will be with you every day until the end. Be happy. Many blessings.
So thank you, dear friends, so much for being here. Let us say hello to our friends on the internet as well. Thank you for joining us. We have Saria Santos, David Dumas, Sol Souza. Thank you, friends. Happy Easter. May the presence of Master Jesus be always alive in all of our hearts. Thank you, friends, and many blessings.